first question would be, why do we need to round numbers? One example might be where we have $25 shared amongst 3 people. Now if we share $25, it's like dividing money. So in this case 25 divided by 3. And if we do that in our calculator, we end up with a figure of 8.3 recurring, and that's where it keeps going forever. And we can't actually divide money up into that sort of amount, so we do need to round that off. Another example might be where we have 1 meter of tape and we wish to divide it up into 7 separate pieces. So if we do 1 divided by 7 on our calculator, we end up with a figure of 0.14285, etc. Now that's a very difficult number to actually measure. You can see there that level of accuracy required is quite significant. Another example is where people use estimation. So for example, if you're talking about the number of people at a sports venue, it's much easier to talk about the number of people in thousands. So 27,892 can often be expressed as 28,000. So how do you actually do the rounding? Let's have a look at a few examples. In the first case, 78.6 needs to be rounded to the nearest whole number. So we have 2 choices. Either we can leave it as an 8 in the whole number position, or we can round up, and they're the only 2 choices we've got: leave as is or round up to the next number. So there we go, we've got 78.6. Our final result will be 78 or 79. To make the decision, we must look at the next place to the right, in this case the 6 in the first decimal place. If it's from 0 to 4 in the lower half, we leave the number as is. If it's in the upper half, 5 to 9, we round the number up. So 78.6 has 6 in the decimal place in the upper half. So that means that we round the number up to 79. Let's have a look at another example and keep that same principle in place. Here we've got the number 2.19. We need to round to 1 decimal place. So the 1 is the number that we're looking at. Either it's 2.1 or 2.2. And the 9 is the number that we have to consider to make the choice. So 9 is in the upper half from 5 to 9, so we round the number up. So 2.19 becomes 2.2, and we stop at the first decimal place because that's where we were actually asked to do our rounding. Let's have a look at another example. This time we're rounding off to the nearest 1,000. So the number in question is the 4 in the 1,000 spot. Either it's going to be 14,000 or 15,000. And once again we consider the next place value, in this case the 2. Now 2's in the lower half, it's less than 5. So that means that we leave the 4 in the 1,000 spots as is, and the number becomes 14,000 because we're rounding to the nearest 1,000. Let's look at another example. This time we're rounding to the nearest 100. So the place in question is the 9, the first one we can see there in red, that's in the 100s column. And the next 9 is going to decide whether we round up or keep the number as is. Now of course 9 means we round up. So we need to be careful because 9 becomes a 0 if we round up, which means that it carries over to the next place, and that 12,000 becomes 13,000. Of course the last 2 zeros are 0 because we're rounding to the nearest 100. So our result is that 12,997 becomes 13,000.